you guys, today I want to talk to you about 5 things that you need to do to your table saw before you start using it. I recently purchased a new table saw and I had to tune it all up before I used it, and that just kind of refreshed my memory, and I thought I would make a video telling you the things that I had to do to this table saw to make it safe and accurate. Without any further ado, let's get right into it to number 1. The first thing I had to do to this table is to make sure that my blade was parallel to the miter slot. And the way I did that, I used one of these measuring gadgets. It looks something like this. I'll put a link to it in the description below. And with the saw unplugged, make sure you unplug it. The way it works, you'll put this little device into your miter, and just like that. And then I marked a tooth on my blade. Make sure you use a clean new blade. This is the blade that came with the saw, so it's brand new. And I marked, let me just bring you around so you can see what I'm doing. So I marked a tooth on my blade. You can see it here. I marked it with a permanent marker. And I'm going to measure not on the tooth itself, because the tooth on this blade, it's angled, so I'm afraid that I won't be able to measure it precisely an exact spot. So I'm going to measure right here on the blade underneath the tooth where I marked it with the marker. So I'm going to put this gadget, this thing retracts, so I'm going to make sure it goes over here and it touches that marker, and then I'm going to zero it out. So now that we took a measurement on that side of the blade, I am going to rotate the blade to the other side, just like this, and I'm going to move the gadget across the blade exactly in the same spot. And as you can see, my gadget still says 0, 0. I don't know if you can see from here. I'm going to bring you closer. Still says 0, 0. That means the miter slot, it's exactly parallel with my blade. So my blade is going perfectly, it's aligned, I don't have to make any changes to this. If your blade is not parallel at your miter slot, the way you will fix it, there are 4 bolts that holds the table, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and then you have a pivoting bolt in the middle of the front, and then in the back there are 2 screws that you can move and unscrew so you can pivot the table. For this table saw, you pivot the table, not the blade. For contractor saws and other saws, you have the option of pivoting the blade in regards to the table. For this particular table saw, you are pivoting the table itself, the cast iron part. Now the second thing we need to check on the table saw is to make sure that the fence is parallel with the miter slot. So let's go check that. I'm going to bring you in closer. Then we'll use the same gadget tool. I'm going to flip it around, and we want to make sure the fence, I'm going to bring it closer until it pushes a little bit in. I'm going to lock the fence, and then I'm going to zero it out. And you see we are at 0, and then I'm going to, first I have to retract the blade because this gadget is going to hit my blade. So let me do that quickly. There we go. So we are on 0, and then I am going to push this gadget to the other side of the fence, and right there we are at 0.02. That is good enough for me. That is as close as I could get this fence. So there you go. That's how I set up this fence. If yours is not parallel to the miter and you need to make adjustments, the way you make the adjustments is on here. Let me show you. On the fence itself, there's these 2 screws over here, and this is the ones you would adjust to get your fence parallel to your miter. All right. Now the third thing you need to check on your table saw before you use it is to make sure that your fence, it is at 90 degrees to the table. And mine, it was not. So to adjust that, what you will do is you use these screws over here. Let me bring you in closer. You use these plastic screws, and what this does, this basically lifts this side up or pushes it down, depends which way you turn the screw. So that will pivot the fence, until you get it straight. So use a square against the fence and the table, and then use these two screws to get it exactly at 90 degrees. The next thing you need to set up on your table saw is the height of your fence. Obviously, you don't want it to drag on the table, but you do want to have a little bit of a gap for like dust and stuff so it doesn't collect in there and gives you inaccurate readings. So you need a little bit of gap, but not too much of a gap. To set up my fence height, I used these little blocks. I have a whole bunch of this in different thicknesses, and I use these guys when I set up drawers and stuff to make sure that the face has the same distance from side to side and up and down. And these green ones, they are 1/32 of an inch, and these red ones are 1/16. So I want the 1/32 of an inch to slide under my fence, but this one has to not be able to slide under the fence. So let's see. Here is my fence, 1/32 of an inch, no problem. It can go all around it, and then the 1/16 does not fit. So that's how I set up the height of my fence. If your fence is too high or too low, the way you would adjust it is on the back of it. You'll have to turn it to the side, and there are screws. There are 8 of them, I believe, on this side that holds this part of the fence, and 8 on this side that holds this one. So you have to loosen those, and then you raise or lower these plywood panels that are the sides of your fence. So that's how you adjust the height of your fence. Now the last adjustment I had to do for my table saw, which is the 5th adjustment, and that was the hardest one to do out of all, is the hard stops on my blade. So if you're not aware, where you have your wheel that you turn, let me bring you around. I'm sorry if I make you dizzy. But these wheels, there's one on the front and one on the side. This one lifts and lowers your blade, and then this one adjusts the angle of your blade. Well, my wheels, they were set up where I could never get to exactly 90 degrees. It would stop right around 89.8. And then I could never get to 45 degrees. It will stop at 45.2. So I had to make some adjustments. And this was the harder adjustments. You have to get in underneath the table saw, and to the side there's a panel. And you open that panel, and then there are 2 yellow screws and with some lock nuts. And you have to release the nut nuts and then turn those yellow screws counterclockwise. And those are very, very hard to get to because they're right here. If you look from the top of the saw, maybe I can show you through here. All right, you can see it from here. So let's see. It is very dark in there. Let me turn it around. Let me get the camera out. So these yellow screws, one over here and one over there, and like I said, they have some locking nuts, and those are so tight, it was very, very hard to undo and turn those, and that's what helps you set up your hard stops on your wheel. Now, these were the 5 things that I had to do with my table saw to make it safe and accurate. So if you buy a new table saw, it doesn't matter of the brand, you have to go through this process to tune it up and make sure that, you're not getting kickback and it's safe and gives you accurate cuts. I hope this was helpful to you and you learned something new. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Skylar Ewing, and I'll see you in my next video.